Hello there! I hope you enjoyed the previous little podcast about the Republic lineup during the Clone Wars. This time we're turning the tables around, going with,
The CIS, or Separatist Alliance.
Confetheracy of Independent Systems, So, what we're doing here is basically going to do the same thing. We're going to evaluate their ground forces, a little bit about their specialties with their vehicles, how well were they used, and then we're going to move on to their space lineup as we did with the Republic, drawing some different references. And we'll just see how it goes. The last video ended up being 1.5 hours. That was wonderful, so we'll see.
Yeah, let's see how long we can talk about the CIS units.
Oh yeah. Knowing us,
It will take a long time.
knowing us, it's difficult to shut up once we get into it.
Indeed.
Alright. So, you don't actually need to watch the previous video in order to watch this one, because it's not really a series or anything like that. It's just basically us talking about back and forth. So, if you don't want to waste 1.5 hours of your life because you don't feel that the Republic is interesting and you'd rather focus on the CIS, well, that is completely up to you.
Yeah, we reference both videos here and there because they have some units that we will compare to, and some that, some small references normally.
Yeah, a little bit to the Legends universe, a little bit to some of the series, maybe the Clone Wars miniseries, maybe even some Mandalorian things, we never know. So, there's going to be quite a few different things incorporated. So, let's just start out with, we all know the battle droids. They were very well known throughout the galaxy, even during the Battle of Naboo, which was 10 years before the Clone Wars even started. So, well, what can we say about the battle droids?
Yeah, well, it depends. We will start with B1, of course, the normal infantry droid used during the Battle of Naboo. And, well, what can we say except they are really stupid.
And cost 2,000 credits per unit.
Yeah, so, the CIS would say that is cheap.
Well, to a point. I mean, if I could have my own killer machine just like that for $2,000, I mean, I'm not saying that I would, but I would have a trouble resisting the offer.
Yeah, and they were equipped with the E5 blaster, normal standard infantry weapon for them.
Very standard, yeah, and a previous version was and a predecessor to the E11, which was used by the stormtroopers of the Empire later on.
Yeah, made by the same company as well. So actually, it's just an evolution of the E5.
Yeah, which would most likely be either Tame and Back or Slain and Corpil.
Yeah, but the B1s, as we see them in Battle of Naboo and some previous as well, I think, they were controlled by a control chip.
Yeah.
They didn't have, what can I call it, a brain by themselves or a processing unit that could understand commands and that, so they got that from a control chip.
Which is also where we saw the biggest flaw to them, because once that control chip went boom, because Anakin misfired a torpedo or two, into an outright exposed main reactor at the end of the hangar. That is one of the stupidest designs I've seen.
Yeah, it's not well designed. Except if mostly people would not fly into the enemy hangar.
Plot armor?
Yeah, plot armor could also be part of it.
Yeah. So, a mix of a very stupid design, a mix of complacency and a bit of arrogance, so in a way maybe? Because people, again, wouldn't fly directly into the hangar?
Yeah, probably, and also I think the hangar would be better guarded.
Yeah, but also remember that the hangars do have several isolated areas, or kind of like bulkheads on ships, where they can completely shut the doors in several different departments of the hangars. So if something happens, if there's a breach or something like that, it can just shut down. We basically see a door like that on General Grievous's ship, the Invisible Hand, during the Battle of Coruscant.
Yeah, where Anakin blows up the shield and then the doors begin to close.
Anakin again, I really gotta get a hold of him.
Yeah.
I need something blown up anyway. Anyway, that wasn't really what we were, that wasn't really the point. The point is that the CIS have a very nice lineup of especially droids, and let's face it, especially during the later years, where the droids aren't reliant on a control chip like that, they actually become rather entertaining because of their willingness to have a conversation with other people, so to speak.
Yeah, as you see in the Clone Wars, the droids begin to pick up, what can you call it, their own personality. during the war.
Yeah.
So they change more or less because they become more independent. They are not controlled from the ship anymore. They have their own control unit built in. So they are their own person, more or less.
In a way, but that's because that's an artificial intelligence. It is an AI, and the thing is, usually the B1s were supposed to have a memory wipe once every 1 or 2 weeks. The difference is that most of the droids didn't do that because their life expectancy was, well, less than that.
So those that kept going, they became more and more independent, got their own personality. They became not standard droids that's just taking commands. No, they actually begin to question commands sometimes. Maybe make some weird remark.
Yeah, I mean, the Clone Wars movie, Rex and another clone jumps up on top of a crashed starfighter, and he's like, "We got you outnumbered." Outnumbered? Wait, 1, 2, and they all got blown up.
Yeah, and that was an ATT.
No, I thought it was well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. And yeah, then they became their own personality, and they became more and more self-aware and got their own personality, their own quirks, like we see during the Clone Wars series and the movie. They, what can you call it? They just changed a bit. They were not like pre-programmed droids anymore.
Well, to a rudimentary point they were, but anything more than that, no.
No.
And that was basically because the CIS only used very cheap parts to put them together. They used very cheap behavior cores and everything like that, which is why those memory wipes were so often required. But for swarm tactics, for example, just open battlefield, sending out thousands of droids and just having them shoot straight and, the basic, very, very basic, thoughtless soldiers, they were quite good at that. I mean, if you look at the battle on the Naboo plains, they served their purpose really well.
Yeah, but at that point they were also just controlled by one ship, so...
True, but they still had that standard kind of behavior adjustment, even with their new behavior cores.
That's true.
So.
But yeah, they are what I would call a swarm unit. You need a lot of them to just take out a few clones, example. You see that a lot in the Clone Wars, where they just shoot and they don't hit a thing. They almost like stormtroopers.
True.
If that is plot armor or they are that bad shooters, well, maybe up for discussion.
I think the B1s do know how to use a blaster because it's pre-programmed, but I think their abilities with it very much depends. So.
And they are also the standard unit for the CIS, also for like tank driving, handling other weapons like the proton cannon.
Basically everything, yeah.
Yeah, rocket launcher, sniper rifle. They could use like a normal clone. They could use different weapons. But well, it depended a bit on the different battle droids, if they were good at it or.
High pressure fire hoses.
Yeah, example.
Inside the Malevolence, yeah.
Episode 3? 4? I can't remember.
4, yeah. Inside the Malevolence, where they have to save Padme.
Yeah. There we see a droid just say to another droid, "You have to be careful with that," and then turns on his hose and flies away.
Yeah. Because apparently he's not heavy enough, or the pressure is too big, but, those little comical quirks are actually just a sign of them developing slowly developing a personality. So, I would say the B1s, really good units actually.
They are good. They are of course fragile. They are destroyed with one blast, most of the time at least, or a droid popper from the clones, which can take out a few of them at a time.
Yeah, it's just it resembles a very small thermal detonator, except that it sends out electric pulses that short circuits the thing.
Yeah, it's just a grenade with a small EMP blast inside.
Yeah, basically.
So of course they can be taken out by that, but which droid can be that?
Yeah, true. I mean, even Vader was weak against lightning.
Yeah, indeed.
To a more serious degree, but still.
Yeah, still. Living tissue also. And machine parts. But yeah, they were normal infantry, used regularly during the war. They show up sometime later as well, like in Rebels.
Yeah.
Where they are still working, so they have a quite big power charge, or they need to recharge at least sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we see at, what is it called, the Battle of...
Salukami or
Salukami.
Salukami. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how you pronounce it, really. You can pronounce it both ways.
they are talking to Grievous that they need a few moments to recharge, which they apparently can do by just shutting down. They have some self-recharging batteries, but they are just standard units for me. I just see them like a regular clone, except they are not that smart.
Yeah. So, but that is also why we have the B2.
Yeah, the Super Battle Droid is also called. It's more or less just the big brother of the B1.
It is. It's much stronger. It has much more powerful alloys built, and its joints so much better protected. Its wrist rockets. What's those wrist rockets? Because why not make a classic Battlefront 2 reference?
Yes.
And they're just so much better in every way. I mean, one would argue that they're arguably a bit more stupid than the later B1s, but that's because they don't really get the grammar right when they're talking in Episode 3.
No, they're just what you could call it monotone in the talk. But yeah, they are better improvement with better armor. They have weapons built into them.
Yeah.
So they don't need to use a blaster, which can be discussed if that's good or bad, because they cannot do the same thing as the B1, because, well, look at those big hands.
Yeah, but some of them did have their left arm replaced with a rocket launcher.
Yeah, the rocket version of the...
And some even had jetpacks.
That's also a different version. And also, one of the arms could be exchanged for different weapons. Some had flamethrowers, in Legends at least, grenade launcher, or the normal rocket launcher as we know it from the Clone Wars series.
Yeah, but not only that, even in the Episode 3 PS2 game, you see different versions of the B2 with deflector shields on it and much more. So it's actually a pretty versatile design, just like the B1.
Yeah, also if you have played Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith PlayStation game.
Yeah, PS2,
You also see them with claws, big claws that can discharge electricity, shielding units, like you say from Lego Star Wars.
Yeah, that too,
different versions. It's just the frame is so well built. It can also take a few hits actually from a normal clone blaster.
Even from the DC-15s, which is one of the bigger weapons and actually a very overpowered weapon in comparison to some of the later weapons like the E11 blaster or the A280 from the Rebel Alliance, that they're firing a very powerful, very overly powered shot, which usually hit a B1 anywhere with that, and you're gonna take it out, no problem. The B2s can actually take that punch.
And a few of them actually. And the funny thing is also that the clone weapons are actually charged with iron, so to make more damage on droids. But still, the B2 can still take a few hits.
Yeah.
Depends on where you hit it, of course. If you hit it the right place, it's of course down in one shot.
Yeah. And of course, if you blast it with something like an ATTE, it's also having a very bad day.
If you take a weapon that is actually stronger than a normal blaster or rifle, it would most of the time get it in one shot.
So, but the B2's an improvement in every way.
Still expensive.
Much more expensive though. But then again, is it actually an improvement? Because the B1 does have more versatility, but when it comes to fighting capabilities, it's a much better weapon than the B1. But the B1s and B2s, they have to be together because they're working best together as one unit.
Yeah.
Another droid that we also do see that I would argue is even more dangerous than the B2 is the Droideka.
Yeah, also a weapon we see first employed in the Battle of Naboo, if you just look at the movies. Shield is one deadly thing. It can roll together to a ball. So for quick transport, because, 3 legs and walking, not the fastest speed we see in Episode 1.
And not very maneuverable as a result, except for when it's rolling. The problem is it's only vulnerable when it's rolling, or it doesn't have its shields out, and its shields have little openings right around where the blasters go out, so they can just keep going.
Yeah, and they have rapid fire twin cannons, so very deadly. You can also see that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have problems with them in Episode 1. Because they have shields, and even if they deflect the fire, it doesn't help. The shield just absorbs it.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone's ever seen what happens if you try to bounce a lightsaber against a deflector shield. It's going to bounce back.
It is.
It's basically going to ricochet off, and well, you're gonna feel it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And while the shields may not be super powerful on the Droideka, they're still strong enough that they can take their own firepower and more.
Yeah, you'd actually need something really big to take it out.
Something like a starfighter, something like some laser cannons on a starfighter.
Yeah.
I mean, the laser cannons on a Naboo starfighter. The Naboo starfighter is only an interceptor, but it's still made for anti-fighter duty, and those things are going to be able to take the shields down, which we see in the movie.
Yeah, they blast right through.
Yeah.
So you need something a bit stronger than a normal rifle or blaster. A rocket launcher could also do it.
Or a very slow-moving droid popper.
Yeah, like we see in Clone Wars when they're training, what is it called, Onderon Rebellion, where they show how to use droid popper, throw it beneath the shield.
Mm-hmm.
Or not beneath, but so slow that it goes through, because like when the droideka is moving, it wouldn't. If it moves too fast, it would be stopped. But it can't move that fast, so it goes very slowly, and then it can walk over objects or let objects go through the shield if needed.
Yeah.
So that is why it also helps with a grenade, rolling slow, going beneath.
It's exactly the same you see on the battlefield on Naboo, because if you look at it, the droids move very slowly as they go right through the shield, but then they move at normal speed once they're inside the shield. So it's the same principle here.
Yeah,
just the Naboo
slow.
shields. Yeah, but just the Naboo shields being on a much larger scale.
Yeah, those are field shield generators, more or less.
Yeah.
But yeah, they droid the car very deadly. Of course, it's very expensive as well.
Definitely.
Because the shield generator in itself is not normal. I would say, at least it's not that normal to see.
No, but it's still more powerful than those personal shields that most Republic commando units and such use.
Yeah.
So, and that just shows that the CIS, they're very capable, and they actually have a very capable ground force in just their infantry alone. Even though you can kind of make the argument that a droideka is roughly equal to a clone on top of a AT-RT.
Yeah. The AT-RT would be able to, because of its rapid fire cannon, that would overcharge the shield.
Eventually, yes, but in the beginning stages, I would actually argue that just to play the devil's advocate, that the droideka is better than a clone on an AT-RT for the reason that with so much rapid firing, it doesn't take much for the clone to be either hit or injured, or for the legs of the AT-RT to take damage.
True.
So,
or even blow up.
Or
it's not armored that much. So.
Exactly, and the pilot is very openly exposed, so even though it's a fun vehicle in classic Battlefront and Battlefront 2. EA.
But still, I would say it's also quite an awesome unit, because the CIS was able to manufacture that many. Because in most of the battles you see in the Clone Wars, there is at least some droidekas.
Oh yeah, definitely. If not anything else, then it's to protect more important people, like politicians and such. And, I mean, if they can give even Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, who was one of the best swordsmen in the entire Jedi Order, a run for their money, then that speaks to some of their levels that speaks to the level of the fear factor that they can actually, they're actually capable of
and the
producing.
engineering behind them. That is very important, because they are made by some insects. I can't remember what they call.
Verpine.
Yeah, Verpine. Some of the best engineers in the Bactoid factory, as far as I know, or at least designers, because most of the droids are designed by them.
Yeah, Bactoid Armor Workshop, everyone, look them up.
Major manufacturer of droids and AI generally, actually.
Yeah, and
other vehicles that were used by the CIS.
So the droidekas definitely dangerous if they can even send a Jedi Master retreating. So. The next one, should we just go a little bit up on the ladder and say the dwarf spider droid?
Yeah, we could do that. Now we get into a bit more vehicle-like
droids. Or did we forget to talk about the tactical droid, Mark 1, Mark 2, and commando droids and Magna Guards?
Let's start with the BX then. The BX commando droid. Special infiltration unit. Very hard to manufacture. And
Definitely.
expensive.
Definitely. But, maybe they could even take down Magna Guards, because they were capable of really putting up a real fight against even the most elite clones and even Jedi.
Yeah, you can see when they meet like Cody and Rex,
Mm-hmm.
they are actually quite difficult,
Yeah.
even though they outsmart them.
Yeah.
But also the droid is very agile for a battle droid,
Incredibly agile, yeah.
which gives it a very good performance when it comes to both blaster fire
Mm-hmm.
and hand-to-hand combat, and even with handheld weapons like a sword.
Yeah.
They are come equipped with a vapor sword.
Yeah.
Not all of them, of course, but the leader of the group is normally always carrying one.
Yep. And their agility also makes them very well capable of actually avoiding blaster fire, which makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, and I also think they have some magnetic in their hand and feet, because if you see in some
They do.
episodes, they jump onto a wall and they get stuck. They sit there for a bit.
They do. So, magnetic feet, ATT.
Yeah, an example as well.
No, but the commando droids in general incredibly expensive, so that's why they're also used very sparingly. And I think you can pretty much compare them to clone commandos.
Yeah, or the ARC Trooper,
Or-
because they are used more on the front, where ARC Troopers are used as well.
Yeah.
Also, what's it called? If you look at it, they also can be used as infiltration unit, like they are used in. Is it episode 3 or something of first season of Clone Wars?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
Where they
episode 5,
infiltrate the
rookies.
listening post. Yeah,
Rookies, yeah.
yeah, rookies.
So it's actually one of the better episodes from season 1, because it really puts into perspective. It really puts you into the mindset of the clones themselves. So if you don't remember it, then try and look at it again, and with a bit more of an analytical mind, or at least mindset, so to speak.
That would give a better impression.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they can disguise themselves as clones, as we see in that episode, because they are built in a way that makes that they can fit the armor, and they can change the voice.
Yeah, their voice processor. Yeah, their voice processor units. Yeah. So the BX series of commando droids, definitely dangerous, but again incredibly expensive.
Yeah, but
Just like the IG-100 Magna Guards.
which is the next one we will talk about.
Exactly. So, and I mean, they actually came out as a... They actually were designed to be a personal kind of bodyguard for Grievous, because originally he wanted to use his own Kalish units, but the Magna Guards put the Magna Guards were kind of put in as an insult from Dooku, just to put insult to injury, after Dooku was the reason why Grievous got so heavily injured and needed cybernetics to survive. Where we seen that before, Mustafar.
Indeed.
No, but what's it called? The IG-100 Magna Guards were also incredibly dangerous in that regard, but again, they were also an elite unit, and they again put up a very good match against Jedi.
Yeah, because and one fact is that they were trained by Grievous himself in lightsaber combat.
Who also, in his processing memories, had records of all the known Jedi's fighting forms, so he knew exactly how to combat them, and he was also trained by Dooku, who were very well familiar with all the forms, except that Dooku was a master of Form 2.
Yeah.
The ultimate master of Form 2, by the way.
Yeah, he was the best swordsman at
Definitely.
that point.
Definitely.
The only thing he couldn't learn that was vapor from Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Or he didn't learn it, I'm not sure.
He didn't, but he did know of Form 7 Juyo, which is what Vapat was based upon.
Yeah. But that's also a special technique, not really a normal lightsaber form.
Yeah. Some consider Vapat to be Form 7, others consider it to be Juyo. Originally it's Juyo, but Form 7, especially when you take Vapat into the mix, is more actually of a mindset than an actual form. So we can get into that in another podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, the Commando droid, very dangerous, though expensive.
Very expensive. Same with the Magna Guards, because both...
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. But both were kind of... both were very, very elite units, but they were...
Few in numbers as well. I think Grievous had 4 at his side most of the time.
Yeah. But they were seen in other places in the galaxy, but mostly the ones you saw the most... The ones I would be most scared of was probably the commando droids, because you see them more than you do see the Magna Guards.
Yeah, Magna Guards are most likely used for guarding like Dooku, Grievous, maybe some other high-rank politicians.
Yeah.
Politicians. Sorry. Tongue twister.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they are rare. But when they are finally found in combat, they are dangerous. Just look at some episodes in the Clone Wars where Grievous has them with him. They are dangerous.
Yeah, if you notice the episode with Eve Koth, for example.
Exactly. Well, I would say they are not used probably at that point. They are more used to be like a cheap shot.
Yeah, true.
At least between Grievous and Koth.
That's true.
Later on, when Obi-Wan is fighting them, that is more fair fight.
Later on, he doesn't even fight them. He destroys some.
Yeah.
He destroys a heavy piece of metal, falls down on them. He cuts the head off of one, and then.
Hey, that's episode 3. Now I'm talking about the Clone Wars series. Later on in that episode.
Ah, yeah, when he fights them and Grievous, yeah.
He destroys them, of course, but well, they still put him a bit back.
Yeah, but then again, it's Obi-Wan. He has plot armor.
Yeah, indeed.
And he has that amazing beard.
Plus, I have never actually seen one of the Magna Guards defeat a Jedi in combat.
No.
They are mostly used as as bodyguards or helping out Grievous to getting the overhand.
Yeah.
An upper hand.
Yeah. So, but that is mainly the single units that we usually see from the CIS. You can make an argument that you also see a lot of the commando droids, especially the first version, which have a very big problem with their calculators and apparently a very big ego.
Yeah, I do.
I'm just thinking about the Battle of Ryloth on the planet. He sits in an AAT pointing at Obi-Wan like ha 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 ha.
Indeed, they were very cocky, at least the first version.
Yeah, the second generation of commando droids were a lot more, what can we say, grounded.
And it's not the commando droid as in the special unit, but the commander droid. The tactical droids is actually called.
Tactical droids, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
But, in general they were just...
They are cocky, overconfident.
And real assholes, because they also, if they figured that, hey, we have this deadline here with the ship, they just left, even though they had to have, for example, a very crucial political prisoner or another very important person, could be Newt Gunray even, they would just leave him alone because, nope, you didn't make it on time, buddy.
Like Battle of Ryloth, where they leave Ward Tambor.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well, they had hoped for killing him with the bombers, but still.
Better to have him as a prisoner, because if you could get some information out that could help you in the war effort.
True, but the tactical droid left and Dooku just said, bomb the shit out of it.
Oh yeah.
Ward Tambor will die by that. Well,
oh yeah.
That didn't happen.
No.
They had a political prisoner out of that and good information.
Yeah, and also you see Ward Tambor getting killed in episode 3. Actually, you don't see it, but he is there when Anakin is there slaughtering them.
He's the last person standing, I would think, actually. But yeah, if you played Star Wars Episode 3, the PlayStation game, then you will slaughter him.
Oh yeah. That's fun.
That is. But yeah, commander droids, tactical droids, very overconfident. Also, one episode, I can't remember, is it in season 1 of Clone Wars, where one of them is just impatient and says, just destroy that cruiser. And even though they have battle droids on it, it just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It just wants to get on.
Yeah. They're so focused on the mission that nothing in their mind can go wrong. And they really, really have no regard for neither droid or meatbag lives whatsoever. Speaking of droids and meatbags, HK-47, best droid ever.
Indeed. But yeah, well, it depends on how the chain of command also works, because if you see at some of the tactical droids, like the one that is with Grievous when he kidnaps Eve Koth, that is actually a decent droid.
Oh yeah.
But okay, it's under Grievous, so if it doesn't behave, it will get slaughtered.
Yeah.
But still, it even comments that Grievous's tactics are working so well.
Yeah.
So, depends on the programming, depends on the droid itself. Not all of them are jerks.
But the majority of them are.
Yeah, at least what you see in the series. But also, droids are also used a lot as humor.
Oh yeah.
In the Clone Wars, so.
Yeah, the droids, especially the B1s, are very much comic relief.
Yeah, and also B2s sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
And also the tactical droids. Though, if we move on to the tactical droid series number 2, the advanced model, the T series, much more advanced. Also different build. They are not that boxy as the first generation.
And I would argue a lot more dangerous than the first one, because the first ones, they are so focused on their tactic working to perfection that they simply cannot calculate any new plans if something goes wrong. They will just keep going until they're dead, basically. It's same mentality from the Vulture droid.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest weakness of the Vulture droid, is that they'll just go right into swarms of point defenses if they have an objective to destroy this and that thing.
Yeah. Or they will just crash into the object if they can't do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it could damage a Venator's hangar pretty badly.
Yeah, so the tactical droids, at least the T-Series number 2, is much more dangerous, much smarter, totally different process, and also their personalities are cruel and cold.
Yeah, but effective.
At least if you look at Kalani, he's very cold.
But he manages to get the job done.
He does the job good, yeah.
Until he meets characters with plot armor.
Yeah. plot armor is the biggest twist in Star Wars.
Yeah. And, well, what's the next thing we have? We don't really have many other infantry kind of droids to talk about, do we?
No, if we have to move on, we will go over to more like walkers and tanks.
Yeah.
And that depends on if the tank is a droid in itself or maneuvered by a droid.
Well, I mean, if we start out small, we can just take the Dwarf Spider Droid, or DSD-1.
Yeah. That's a droid in itself. Has very big eyes, receptors for watching enemies, and then one cannon, which actually is kind of like its nose.
Yeah, it is kind of like a nose cannon.
And 4 legs.
Yeah.
4 legs for walking around. They can actually walk quite a while, also on walls or on ceilings, if it can support their weight. They are not light, even though they are some of the smallest droids.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to the walking and tanks and that.
Yeah, well, when it comes to that point, I would say that, especially against lighter vehicles, the Dwarf Spider Droid is actually pretty dangerous. It's a powerful little thing. But it's very lightly armed. It's very lightly armored, and well, if you shoot one of the legs, you've basically incapacitated it. So
it will fall over like a droid car without its third leg. It will just fall over to the side.
Jar Jar.
Yeah, Jar Jar.
In episode 1.
Yeah. And its cannon can actually be used as a sniper.
Oh yeah.
It is actually a sniper tank, I would say.
Yeah. But it still has way more power behind each blast than what is usually required for stopping a single
infantry, at least.
Yeah, for stopping infantry. So
maybe sniping vehicles would be a better idea.
Yeah, well, it can even take out an ATT if it manages to hit right.
Yeah, that's true. And also its cannon is quite rapid firing. Depends on the power setting, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it has different power settings, but I'm not actually sure.
If you look at the Battle of Teeth, as an example, they are just firing rapidly after both the gunships and the ATTs.
Oh yeah.
Where they then fire at the legs of the ATT, so they fall down. Yeah.
Target those walkers, and then they're targeting they're not actually targeting the legs of the ATTs. They're targeting the very ground that they're standing on. So
that would make them fall down. So small bugger. Well, not that small, but for a tank it is small and annoying. Yeah.
Well, something that is maybe around the same size, but that I would say is a lot more dangerous, at least to infantry, is the crab droid.
Yeah. Also a droid in itself. Also, it comes in different configuration depending on size. One version with 4 legs and one version with 6 legs.
Yeah.
I think the four-legged one is more anti-infantry, while the bigger one is more for vehicles.
Yeah, but the bigger one with 6 legs is also much more capable of just wandering right into a swarm of infantry and just basically slaughtering them.
True.
So, I mean, they're both incredibly dangerous, but again, it depends on what they're used for, because crab droids would be literally useless against an ATTE. Like, they couldn't even scratch the paint off of it, pretty much.
No, it's more for anti-infantry work. Maybe some very light vehicles.
ATRTs, maybe?
Maybe. Or the Swamp Speeder.
Oh yeah, the Swamp Speeder.
Or the Bark Speeder.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Swamp Speeder, we forgot to mention that in our previous video.
Well, it's not that much shown, so...
Nah, that's true. But still, I mean, they're pretty light, they're dangerous, but, I mean, if you put them up against anything heavier than an ATRT, they're going to have a bad day.
Yeah, really bad day.
Yeah. So, but unleash it in the middle of a platoon of clones, and they're going to go through a very significantly emotional event.
Yeah, they're gonna crash it all. Well, except if the clone can get up on its back.
Yeah, and shoot it as we see on Utapau. Yeah. That's actually a six-legged
version.
Yeah, crab droid. So, some of the next ones that we have that are droids in themselves, that would probably be something like the Hellfire droid.
Yeah, that's a droid in itself. Rocket artillery form.
Yeah.
Actually quite fast moving.
Very fast moving, but again, too slave rigged in their objectives. Very much like many other droids. Previous B1s, vultures, you know, it very much depends. You really have to be quick on your feet and think fast on your feet if you're going to be able to really use the Hailfire droids to their best capabilities.
They're light and fast, but have a devastating attack.
They have a very devastating attack, but again, one beam laser from an LAAT and they're done for.
Yeah, they got cut right through.
Yeah.
They have no armor at all.
No.
Maybe against normal fire, blaster cannon, blasters and that, but bigger than that, well, I think that will cut through.
Yeah. So, that's just... But again, for taking down like heavier equipment, even ATTs, maybe even Juggernauts.
Juggernauts I don't know, but ATTs we know.
Yeah, Juggernauts we've seen. ATTs we've seen being
destroyed.
being destroyed instantly. Yeah, one shot. And I have a feeling that their missiles will also cause some LAATs to crash if hit right.
Yeah.
Again, remember that the LAATs are not very maneuverable. And disastrous for use in dogfight.
Indeed.
Whereas those missiles, well, they're fast, they're agile, and they will hit their target.
They will. They're tracking, if I remember.
So, again, Hailfire's decent droids, but it depends on the usage, like we've said with all the other units so far.
Yeah, it depends on programming, on the commander. Yeah, and how they're used, because I would say in the Battle of Geonos they're not used correctly.
No.
They are rushing to the front line.
Yeah. They should have stayed back a bit and focused on picking off the ATCEs.
Yeah.
Because that would have really turned the battle around. And then, of course, their missiles are still fairly high explosive, so they could also cause quite a dent in clone formations.
Yeah. They have at least some load of explosive, or else they would not be able to take down an ATTE. So yeah, and also I can't remember how many they fired, but I think they would also be able to put different missiles on it.
I think they have something like 28, 26 something missiles.
Could sound right.
I can't actually remember the exact number.
No, but still, if they fire them singly at a time. But still, if they fire them all at one target, that's gonna blow.
You're going to have a very bad day.
Indeed. And also it has an anti-infantry cannon below.
Yeah.
Well, how much it will use it, well...
Yeah, that's up for debate.
Yeah, also depends on the situation, I would say.
So the next droid we have, OG9 homing droid.
Yeah, a bigger sister, or what you would call it, to the dwarf spider droid.
Yeah, it's probably the female and then the dwarf spider droid being the male.
Yeah, or the other way around normally in Spider World.
Yeah, but I think the male is smaller in the Spider World, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
I got it around.
But the OG9, a beam laser and an anti-personnel light vehicle blaster on the bottom.
Beneath, yeah.
Yeah. very, very narrow profile, very thin legs and everything.
And the only big thing it actually has is its own head.
Which is where all of the vitals are situated.
Yeah.
Very big weakness with the very slim legs and everything, but a very powerful weapon if, again, used at a proper distance.
Yeah, the beam cannon can do a lot of damage.
It can,
and it can be the exchange for like an iron cannon.
Oh, yeah.
So it depends. I have also read somewhere that they could be exchanged for heavy turbo laser cannons.
Probably.
How well that works, no idea.
We'll probably never know.
No.
But there isn't really much to say about it. It's a dangerous machine.
It really is. And it's tall, so it has a good overview of the whole battlefield.
So meaning that several kilometers or several miles down, if it spots an ATT or something else, but mainly using the ATT because that's the most prevalent Republic vehicle, it is going to probably take down an ATT if done right. And if it goes for the glass in front...
Yeah. The driver is at least dead.
Yeah. And if the driver's dead and you mess up the controls, well, then you may not have destroyed the ATT, but you can't really use it for anything.
No, it was just lay there on the ground.
Yeah, basically.
The only thing that still would work was probably the mass driver.
Yeah. But it's the ATTE's power pack is also situated right behind the cockpit.
And then we have a blow up.
I think that's also why it blows up so badly when it gets hit by a Hellfire.
Yeah, probably.
But the clones mainly feared the OD9 homing droids because they were so tall and because they were impossible for the clones at least, unless they had heavier equipment to really do anything about.
Like rocket launchers. Well, yeah, because its armor was actually decent.
Its armor wasn't bad at all. It was just a very narrow frame, and those very narrow frames were very difficult for a clone with a handheld rocket launcher to actually hit.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have much of a defense against it, apart from bigger vehicles.
Indeed.
So, and they were actually used pretty well around in the Clone Wars. So...
Yeah, I find that you don't see them that much, at least in the Clone Wars series.
Yeah, but in episode 2 and 3 you see them.
That's true. Both 2 and 3.
So, well, one of the next vehicles, I don't know if that's a droid. Nah, it's not a droid. Some would probably consider it a droid if we take the Vulture droid now. But the Vulture droid is both a space-going and land-going vehicle.
It can be used for both. Both as air superiority fighter.
Yeah.
And also as a ground platform because it can walk.
Yeah. So, and the Vulture droid we've mentioned before, it has some light lasers. Some later did have concussion missiles, but
discard missiles.
Oh yeah. Well, some did have concussions too.
Okay, just the ones that we see in at least episode 3 have discord missiles, where they release the
bus droids, yeah.
Sabotage droids, whatever.
Yeah, those nasty little buggers.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the bus droids, we forgot to talk about them.
Well, we can still manage that when we come to the next part.
Yeah, that's true. But apart from that, there is... I wouldn't exactly say this is a droid, but it is probably steered by droids. The MTT, Multi-Troop Transport.
The Multi-Troop Transport is piloted by droids.
Yeah. And basically just one big droid deployment center.
Multi-troop transport.
It has a lot of droids. Even the Lego version has 20 droids. At least the 2007 version does. Which is also, in my opinion, the best one of them. So, the MTT, actually pretty lightly armed.
Yeah, for its size.
Yeah, but incredibly heavily armored. And very heavy, and could also... If it didn't really have its droid pods in it, it could also just be used for some heavy cargo hauling on ground. I mean, it was actually a very stable, very powerful, and very strong vehicle.
It is. For a transport, it is very heavy. And if we look at like episode 1, they deploy droids incredibly slow.
They deploy them slowly, but they have a lot of them.
They have a lot of them. Later models, at least during the CIS time, they had rapid deployment where they don't fold out, but where the droids just hang in and then drop it.
Yeah.
That is a more rapid deployment
Mm.
than the old model.
Yeah. So, but
Those droids are just activated directly when they are deployed,
exactly, yeah.
instead of having to be deployed and then activated later.
Mm. But the MTTs, like the ATTEs, could also serve several other configurations. For example, as a well-armed transport of very important people or some very seriously important goods could be transfigured into a mobile command center. Like, it had a lot of similarities to the ATTE, except that I would argue that it's more heavily armored, but much more lightly armed.
Probably also slower.
Slower too, yeah. And then again, maybe not, because the MTT is repulsor lift.
That's true. That might improve its speed.
Yeah. So, and then, I mean, the MTT, one of the most crucial aspects for the
Droid army.
For the droid army during the Clone Wars and even before that. But something that I would almost see as even more crucial is the next vehicle that we're going to be touching on, which is the Armored Assault Tank.
AAT.
The best CIS vehicle of the war.
Yeah, I would agree on that because, well, fairly armored, good firepower, and decently mobile.
Decently mobile with around 60 or 55 kilometers an hour. Repulsor lift vehicle again, which makes it able to traverse whatever terrain without any penalty whatsoever.
Except when it's trees. As we see in some episodes.
Except when it's trees, yeah. But I mean, if we're talking about general terrain surfaces, like it doesn't matter if it's lava or if it's the sea or whatever. It doesn't care. It just keeps hovering over it.
Yes.
But also the AAT has some light lasers on each side. It has its very powerful plasma cannon on top, as well as 3 different kinds of rockets or missiles mounted in the very base.
Yeah, and that base could even be exchanged for reload.
Yeah, the whole base would actually be taken out and just switched out with a newly armed version. Yeah, so it's basically split up in 2 parts.
Oh yeah, the whole front can actually go off.
Yeah. The whole disc section, so to speak.
Yeah, and then you could get different loadouts probably.
But most had grenades for bunker busting, and they had for anti-infantry and for anti-vehicle.
Yeah, so they had all 3 different weapons needed.
Yeah, they did. And then again, their armor was decently substantial. I mean, I wouldn't exactly call it a heavy tank. I would call it a medium tank.
Yeah, medium tank.
So it was just kind of... It was a very well-rounded model. It was a very well-rounded, very well-respected, and in some places feared tank. Because you could use it anywhere.
Yeah, and it both had anti-vehicle cannon and anti-infantry, and then it had all the missiles.
And on top of that, it was not made specifically only to be piloted by droids. It could be piloted by organic personnel as well.
Yeah. And you also see in some Clone Wars episodes where commanders are living beings that are just taking their head out of the tank.
Yeah.
At least on Christophsis it is so.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, droids would be commanding.
Yeah.
Which can then be discussed how well that was.
Sometimes. But if they were just recently promoted, like in the very first episode, then not very well.
At least not if you come up against the Grandmaster of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, I do. I still feel sorry for that little droid.
Yeah.
I think his name was 224.
Yeah, that sounds alright.
Yeah.
224, yeah.
So, but the AAT, arguably the best vehicle for the CIS during the Clone Wars.
And most versatile.
Yeah.
You can also see they made a configuration with the extinction weapon.
Yeah.
Where it fires one big shell with which burns everything alive. But droids are okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the advantages of using a droid is the fact that you don't really have to think about their well-being in that way, and you can use some weapons that would be outlawed in real life, but droids wouldn't be touched by it.
Biological weapons.
Flames, for example, yeah. So.
very useful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there's also some other different configurations of it, but
Yeah.
I can't remember them.
Probably. It was a very stable and very versatile platform, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Mm.
But one of the next vehicles that we have is one that is only very briefly seen in Season 2 at the Second Battle of Geonosis, the Super Tank.
Yeah, actually an upgraded version of the A80, I would say. Different, of course, but it had the same role. Rapid firing cannons for anti-infantry, and then it had a mortar launcher for destroying vehicles and also infantry formations.
Yeah, with heavier armor than the MTT, which is a feat in itself.
Also ray shielded.
And ray shielded.
Which made most blasters and that just peel off.
Yeah.
Even the AV7 cannons, really big cannons that are used for anti-vehicle duty, just couldn't touch it.
No.
Not at all.
No, they couldn't scratch the paint off of it even if they tried.
Yeah. At least you can say it was probably very expensive to make.
Incredibly expensive. But
Also,
I think that's also why they didn't make any more of them. Plus, the facility that it was created in was destroyed.
Yeah, so if they couldn't build anymore or they lost the plans, maybe, well, hard to say. Or City has made something so that they couldn't produce it anymore.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because the super tank would have been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Really, because you can if you watch season 2 and the second battle of Geonosis, it really wreaks havoc in the short time that they are alive.
Oh yeah, it puts the ATTs to shame.
Yeah, and the A7V cannons were also completely destroyed.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the clones couldn't do anything against it. They had to take down the bridge to take the tanks down.
Well, I mean, that's one way.
That's one way, yeah. One way down.
So, but again, I mean, I think we've pretty much touched on all the CIS vehicles, haven't we?
NR99, or what it's called. I can remember.
You mean the corporate tank?
Yeah, the corporate.
The snail droid?
Snail droid, yeah.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that one.
Yeah. Not that used, actually. We haven't seen it that much, only in episode 3.
Yeah.
So no idea actually how expensive it is, or...
And classic Battlefront 2.
Yeah, classic Battlefront 2.
And EA Battlefront.
Yeah, they're used on the Battle of Kashyyyk.
Yeah, they are. Pretty big tanks, pretty heavily armored tanks, pretty heavily armed tanks.
And they could also transport droids around. Of course, a limited number, because they could stand on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say if they are armored good or bad, because if you look at episode 3, a Wookiee comes down, puts a grenade on it, and boom, the whole tank goes up.
Well, in that case, I would say that settles it.
Yeah, so,
but another one that we actually forgot is the proton cannon.
Oh yeah, proton cannon, seen in season 1 of Clone Wars, Battle of Ryloth.
Oh, I thought I saw it here on my shelf.
Yeah, it's also on the shelf, yeah. You have it in Lego form.
But yeah, the proton cannon, an incredibly big gun. That's basically what it is. It's
a proton cannon with a droid brain and some feet.
Yeah, but it also did have a manual droid controller.
Yeah, you could put a droid on it, but it can also fire by itself.
And you almost you see a bigger version of them on Grievous's flagship, the Invisible Hand.
Yeah, true. They used them for flag fire. No, not flag fire, but broadside fire.
Yeah.
In episode 3, when we see that Venator come up along Grievous's Providence class destroyer, and we see them open fire. They just open fire, and that are actually proton cannons.
Yeah, they are. And they also make quite a significant dent even to a well-armored capital ship like a Venator.
Yeah.
And, well, they're also capable of doing ground-to-space combat
ground-to-air, I would say.
Ground-to-air, yeah. Ground-to-space is a completely different level, like the giant boob nipple gun from Family Guy.
Indeed.
Ion cannon. But we also see that one of those really shreds a Acclamator's engine units during the invasion of Ryloth.
Yeah, a couple of shots, but one good hit, and it just blew up the one side of the engine completely.
Yeah, and that made the Acclamator crash.
Yeah.
Because you see it falling, so I would assume it crashes soon after.
Me as well. But yeah, a nasty weapon, really. It can also be used for targeting ground.
Mm-hmm.
which we actually see also in the Clone Wars Season 2, Battle of Geonosis. They stand on a ridge. They can just fire down. And how much damage they can make, well, it would be nasty.
Yeah. So, in general, it's a
nasty weapon that can walk by itself and also shoot by itself. But it's better if you pilot it, because the brain in it is not that good.
No.
And yeah, price, no idea. I think it's expensive. Because proton cannon and droid brain.
Plus all the ammo you need for it. Remember, it can only fire once and you have to throw out the empty shell casing.
Yeah, that's a weird thing about CIS proton, actually, that they empty the shell every time.
I think it's got something to do with the fact that it can fire a much more powerful projectile.
Probably.
If it has to have all the Tabana gas for itself to actually be able to fire something, you're also using out some of your. You're also using them out. But if you use everything in one blast and you can just change out the ammo for every blast, I would assume that it makes for a much more powerful punch.
Probably yes.
Albeit with a much lower rate of fire.
Yeah, that is true.
So, but I think we've pretty much touched on all the ground vehicles for now. And that we should probably move on. Except that we also have the little STAP.
Yeah, also very used vehicle, personal transport.
For single trooper aerial platform, yeah.
Yes.
STAP. What can we say about it? 2 light laser cannons, transports a single droid from A to B.
Can be used against infantry because of its 2 rapid fire cannons.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're used for transport most of the time.
Most of the time, definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, not much to say about them. You see them a few times in the Clone Wars. You see them during Episode 1. Can't see if they are shown during any of the other movies.
No.
Maybe in Episode 3. I'm not sure.
Yeah, then it would have to be on. Kashyyyk, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm not sure anymore because, well, they are not shown that often actually. In the Clone Wars, you see them a bit more here and there.
Yeah. So, but
let's move on to space.
Yeah. So the first one we have in space,
the Ultra Droid,
or the smallest one, the bus droid.
Ah, yeah, the bus droid.
We already briefly touched on it. Very nasty little buggers.
Yeah, it's a, what can you call it? It's a sabotage droid.
Yeah.
With a few tools to sabotage ships. I think it has more than one. No, it has buzzsaw and.
It has a buzzsaw and it has some. I think it also has some disruptor kind of. You know, but basically, what their most prevalent weapon is a buzzsaw, or what we would usually refer to as an angle grinder.
Yeah.
To just cut into things and slice off wires, and they also do have some arms that can kind of cut cables and such.
Yeah, they have some small tools here and there.
Yeah.
And they have one big, I can't remember what it is, but a cylindrical mouth or something they can shoot down into ships.
Oh yeah.
And cut through and bite or tear up at least different parts of the ship, such as wiring and other important things.
Basically like a very big blender.
Yeah, actually.
Kind of like some of those blades on a blender that you just...
Yeah, just rotates and puts them down into to the hull and it cuts through.
Yeah, and it takes everything. It doesn't care if it's another droid or not, as we've seen with R4.
Yeah.
But of course R2 had plot armor.
Yeah. And he's also a bit smarter, I think.
Yeah, but then again, R2 also managed to take out 2 V2s.
True. Well, they are not that smart either. But at the bus droid, compared to how small they are not stupid.
Definitely not. And they're dangerous.
And yeah, and I think maybe they have the schematic for the fighters or something.
Probably, yeah.
And then they just know where to cut.
Yeah.
Except maybe on Obi-Wan's, because they didn't disable it or destroy it. They just took out a few systems.
Plot armor.
Yeah, plot armor. Plot armor.
I mean, if we can't really answer it and we know a hero is involved, in 90% of the cases, plot armor.
Yeah, plot armor.
Because that's usually a good response.
Yeah, well, it is most of the time plot armor, I would think, because, well... Yeah, I don't know what to say about that actually, but let's move on then. Vulture droid.
Vulture droid, the most standard droid we see in space.
Yeah, we already touched upon it as a, what can I call it, a ground support unit.
Yeah, well, basically it has a battery that can make it run for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes if it doesn't go at full power. And it is too heavily focused on one thing, so that's why they're usually easily destroyed in swarms. But they are capable of doing some turns and maneuvers that can that would, at least in atmosphere, cause a humanized pilot to pretty much be killed almost instantly because of the G-force exposure.
Yeah, and also the Vulture droid is a droid in itself. It can think for itself mostly.
Unless it is, unless of course it hones in on something. If it sees a vulnerability somewhere, but there are some complications in the way, it will still hone in on it, and it will fly there until it has either one, completed its own objective, or two, been destroyed.
Yeah, always one of those parts.
Yeah.
Never think.
No. Oh, the droids are very the Vulture droids at least are very primitive in that front.
The same goes for his sister.
The hyenas?
Yeah, the hyena.
Oh yeah.
They're also single-minded.
Oh yeah.
And now when we are on the topic of that, they are actually just Vulture droids bigger, with another. Is it a head or what is it? A compartment or something they have extra?
Beats me.
Well, because if you look at a Vulture droid and then a hyena bomber, they look the same, but hyena has two heads.
Yeah.
So
I think it's actually an extra power pack.
Probably. Heavier weight, more power.
Yeah, more power, more requirement for power. At least that's a theory. I'm not really sure because I haven't really done much info on the hyena, to be honest.
Me neither. It never really interested me that much.
Same.
But still, it is a Vulture droid, but with a payload for bombing. Still has the same cannons. I'm not sure if it can use rockets. Maybe on the later model, like the Vulture.
Concussion missile, maybe?
Maybe. I'm not that sure. Because normally it carries proton bombs for bombing runs. Maybe even proton missiles for space battles.
Yeah.
Because the few times we see them, they're bombing on planets.
Yeah, they are. So there may be a slightly different configuration on the hyena droid. I was about to say Hellfire. On the hyena compared to well,
the normal Vulture or normal version.
Yeah.
It depends. Maybe it's also like some other bombers. Depends on the mission profile.
Yeah.
If they're going to bomb a planet, well, proton bombs. If going against a capital ship, proton torpedo. Maybe. That I'm not sure about. Well, and I think it might be the same processing unit and that as the Vulture.
Yeah.
So maybe same thought. They will go on until the target is destroyed or they are destroyed.
Yeah.
Because, well, we haven't seen them that much in combat where they have been shot at. Well, maybe except for the Battle of Ryloth, but they are just shot down so easily by Ahsoka and Anakin.
Yeah.
So we don't see them maneuver or anything, they're just shot down.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
The other times we see them, well, they have no resistance.
That's true. So,
hard to say.
Yeah. But another droid, on the other hand, that is way more dangerous than the hyena and the Vulture combined, the Tri-droid.
Nasty motherfucker.
A real nasty thing. The Tri-droid, an interceptor, and just in every way superior to the other droids out there. I think it came out as a response to the V-Wing.
As far as I remember, yeah, and also to the Jedi.
Yeah.
They needed a better fighter to intercept Jedis because, well, Jedis and Vulture droids. We know the result.
Yeah, exactly. So
they needed a better fighter at that point and one that was more smart.
Yeah.
It has a better processor. Of course, it made it hugely expensive.
Definitely.
That's also why you don't see them that often.
And only late in the war.
Yeah, late in the war. They are quite expensive to make. They have some good weapons. If I remember right, on every arm you see that goes over the cockpit, there is a laser cannon inside. And also it has one nose cannon.
It does, yeah. And the nose cannon is a little more powerful than the others.
Yeah. If you see it in episode 3, one shot from that was enough to put an Arc 170 into flames.
Yeah, it was. And the Arc 170 is decently heavy armored and shielded.
Yeah, it's actually a heavy fighter.
Heavy fighter and assault fighter, yeah.
Yeah, assault fighter, I would probably say.
But the Tri-Droids, very expensive, but also very effective. So
also a bit smarter than the Vulture, at least. They wouldn't just continue on the straightforward, unless they were ordered to, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they had overruling orders, unless they had orders that that overruled what their own programming had told them.
Yeah.
So, the next thing we have?
I think we have to move up then. Hard Cell.
Yeah, the hard cells, yeah. Oh yeah, and the CC-9979.
Yeah, those are mostly transport.
Yeah.
You will see them sometimes maybe used as corvettes in some games, where they have been armed with anti-fighter cannons.
But mostly they were they're the big 4-wing droid transports that you see in Episode 1, where Anakin and not Anakin, where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan also store away on 2 different ships.
Yeah, that's where they unload all the AATs and MTTs.
Yeah.
In the before the Battle of Naboo.
Yeah.
Invasion of Naboo, is it called?
Yeah, but as a transport, that's basically it. Some could use it as a light patrol cruiser of some kind, or a light patrol corvette. But otherwise, it's just
transports really. They are not armed like a normal ship would be. Maybe some have had a refit, but you never see them in the TV shows or in the movies.
Exactly.
So probably just used as transport, at least in universe. That some might have configured them differently, we never know.
No, I mean, the options that you have with this kind of ship are pretty much infinite.
Yeah, they can be configured differently or transport different things. Like like those used on the Naboo, they were transporting tanks and droids. Hard cells were also used in the Battle of Geonosis to transport droids off-world.
Oh yeah.
And other important people.
Yeah.
So yeah, big transports. Nothing more to tell about them really.
No. And then we have we spoke of the Hammer Picket briefly at some point.
Yeah, the Hammer Picket. Yeah, that's a corvette. Though we have not seen it in universe.
No, I mean I've only personally seen it in the mod for Star Wars Empire at War Forces of Corruption called Republic at War. So I don't really know how much merit to put into that, but according to that, and those games are usually pretty well on point with the role of these different ships. I would say that it's probably a very decent anti-fighter weapon.
It is. It has quite a lot of weapons. If you look at it, if it flies through a fighter squadron, it picks half of them more or less. So it has some really rapid firing. What weapons it has is not shown. We cannot tell what it is exactly, but they are quite nasty for fighters and bombers.
Oh, in that case, they serve their purpose.
Yeah, indeed.
So we also spoke of the hard cells. They're kind of we didn't really say much about them. They're soft skin transports. They have some light armament and some light armor and light shielding, but again, they're mostly just used as transport, so they don't really have much of a combat ability in that regard.
Oh.
They serve a much more crucial logistical role.
Yeah.
But then we have to get up. We actually have to go up by quite a bit in size.
Yeah.
Because going from maybe a few hundred meters to up to 800 and something, being the Munificent class frigate.
Mm-hmm. Banking clan frigate.
Yeah, some refer to them as a banking clan frigate too, yeah.
At least they were used as that before they joined the CIS.
Yeah, and they were used for heavy cargo transport and hauling,
and secure transfer over their communication network. They have incredibly good communication sensors.
Yeah, they do, and they always. I mean, the Munificent only has a crew of 200, and the only reason why I know that is because I made a versus video incorporating it. But the thing is,
also if you look at the bridge, it doesn't look that big.
No, and 200 crew, and I think that is a mixture of some organic meatbags and clankers. The difference is that most of the ship is very much automated by itself, and all the kind of different munificents. They talk to each other basically. I mean, it's not something we can see because it happens all over a common software. But
it's just code sent forward and back.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, you're the IT guy.
Yeah. Talking in binary.
Yeah, could be.
That is at least my guess if they are communicating in any way. Normally they are crewed completely by droids, so that they are not that automated. But if you look at all their cannons, one droid can control maybe half of them at once. I'm not sure exactly. And they have oversized guns for their size.
Yeah, at least the two prow mounts are incredibly powerful. So powerful that a few shots from them can take down a full Venator.
You see that in the Clone Wars.
That aside, though, they are not capable of matching a Venator unless a Venator gets in front of the prow mounts, because otherwise the munificents will be torn up.
Yeah.
They're so lightly armored, in fact, that as we see in the Clone Wars, ATTEs, ground-based, albeit heavy vehicles, but ground-based vehicles, can destroy them.
Yeah, by taking out the engine or aft part.
Yeah. Granted, the shields on the munificent were lowered or removed completely to be focused on front, but still, I see the fact that a ground-based weapon can damage a ship that size
is incredible.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes about how lightly armored around the engine units that the munificents were. Granted, the munificents were never heavily armored in the first place.
No.
And engine units are some of the most fragile parts on the ship.
Yeah, if they get hit, the rest will blow up because the reactor will most likely get a shock from that.
That's actually why the MC-80 Home 1 type has a lot of its engine units sunk into the hull.
Yeah, that helps defend.
Yeah. But it's not good for cooling, though.
No. Well, how much cooling do you need in space? It's goddamn cold.
Maybe. But otherwise, we have, apart from the Munificent being a very big mainstay, we have the Resicant Light Destroyer.
Yes, Resicant Light Destroyer is also a skeleton-made ship. Armor on that, not really heavily invested. But cannons has a lot of them, and they are big.
Again, prow mounts, a lot of point defenses, and a lot of twin laser cannons like the Munificent. Just has more. It has a longer, narrower profile, and you can't really use it for very much cargo hauling. But what you can use it for is sending it in and just basically having it cause havoc. They're usually, just like with Munificents, they're very much working in groups, like wolf packs of 3 to 5 vehicles, or 3 to 5 ships that just go in and cause major damage. But like with the Munificents, they also are mostly controlled via droid brain, which, again, as we see with the Hellfires, the Vultures, they can sometimes be a little bit too focused on one thing and disregarding everything else, even their own destruction.
Yeah, they are stubborn.
Yeah.
Resicant Light Destroyers are known, at least if you read about it, it is known to be stubborn. It just continues firing on the target until it is destroyed.
Or itself is destroyed.
Yeah, and even if it gets hit by on the other side, it will just not focus on that. It will focus on the ship it already has in target.
Yep, it will, with everything.
Yep.
Even try with the weapons that aren't really in the right arc.
Yeah, weapons on the other side of the hull will just be turned into one direction and not move anymore.
And not fire, because even the Resicant is not stupid enough to fire on itself.
Yeah. Well, most of the weapon can point in, but yeah, if it could, it would probably not use them.
So, but yeah, for just sending it in and causing panic and everything, a really good ship. For longer lasting battles, for tactical, for anything else, useless.
Mostly, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
In bigger groups, probably better. Alone, nah.
That's what I'm saying. They were best used in wolf packs.
Yeah. So, decent ship, I would say. Probably a bit armored than the Munificent. Maybe, I'm not sure. But one weakness it has is the connection between the engines and the rest of the hull. It's thin, like the Nebulon B.
Yeah. and it has the same weakness. Target it there, and you're gonna destroy it. So
Yeah, either you will destroy the whole ship, or you will at least disable the ship because you take out the engines.
yeah, but if you've taken out the engines and you've basically made the ship incapable of fighting, you have, in my book at least, it still counts as a casualty.
Indeed.
But yeah.
But it must have had some success since they made a Dreadnought version.
Oh yeah.
Just where they take the normal Risk and enlarge it.
Mm-hmm.
Put more guns on it.
Make it twice as big and just make it twice as ugly.
Yeah. Well, it has the same shape and that is just bigger.
Yeah.
Cannons and that are just more because, well, bigger size, more guns.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much else to say about the Dreadnought version because it's just an enlarged version.
Yeah. But speaking of a Dreadnought version, we could just take a look at the Providence class after this.
Yeah.
Which is where I will really say that I think the CIS came into their own. And in my opinion, the Providence class destroyer or carrier
slash destroyer.
Yeah. Is the most well-rounded and best CIS ship during the Clone Wars.
It is. If you look at its cylindrical hull, most of it makes good points for weapons. Good what is it called? A broadside, as we see in Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
Even though Invincible Hand goes down after that, it had been in battle before that.
It had been pretty severely damaged before that, yes. But if you want my honest opinion, then I also am of the opinion that a Venator versus a Providence, the Providence will in fact win.
More cannons. I'm not sure about how much more armor it actually has. More. Probably.
It's about the same.
It's
and
about
the
the same.
shielding is a little bit superior on the Providence, but it's not by much. The difference is though that my reasoning for saying that the Providence would win over a Venator is the fact that the Venator mainly has those 8 heavy dual turbo lasers. Take out one of those and you've reduced its firepower by a fourth, or by 25% on that side.
Yeah.
And if they go up on a broadside, that is a huge loss.
That is.
But the Providence, on the other hand, has 36 quad turbo lasers.
Yeah.
So take one of those or take 3 of those out, whatever.
Yeah, just continue.
Yeah. But take 2 of the heavy duels out on the same side on the Venator, and you really do have a huge issue. The Venator's most powerful weapon is also its biggest weakness.
Yeah, if you take them out at least.
Yeah. So, in that regard, the Providence in itself, even just the destroyer carrier version, is, I would say, one of the most balanced and well-rounded ships, and it still had a huge hangar.
Yeah, and it was also good for modifications.
Definitely.
Because, well, even though it's made by Quarrens, which are not related directly, but in the family of the Mon Calamari, where Mon Calamari has the typical idea of making each ship unique. Quarrens at least made this ship normal, with many modifications.
Yeah. I will say for the Mon Calamari, though, that they were very artistic, and it was part of their culture to make everything unique. But they very begrudgingly standardized the MC-90 in later years.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they got that idea from the Quarren.
Maybe.
Never know.
No.
But still, yeah, Providence, hardcore ship, I would say. If we exclude all the non-viewed ships, like the Praetor and that's probably the best ship the CIS has. Because, well, if it only has the Venator to go up about, it will win. I'm not sure about the Victory then, but...
The Victory is a bit of a different case, because the Victory has to be used in a different scenario. Well, that's actually a good idea for a versus video. Thanks. But, I mean, the Providence in itself, just a great all-around ship. Not as good an all-rounder as the Venator, but a better combatant than the Venator.
As far as I know, the Providence can't land on land.
Yeah, I think...
It can land on water, but...
I think it can on land as well, actually.
Well, at least I know on water it can make emergency landing. But if it can on ground, well, now the ship was more or less destroyed in Revenge of the Sith, but, well...
I mean, there we did at least see half of it landing on ground.
Yeah, half of it. And I wouldn't say that was a landing, I may say that was a soft crash.
Typical of Anakin, he always crashes.
But still, a very good rounded ship. At least if it doesn't have to fight against any of the other ships from the Republic Navy that we don't see.
Definitely.
Because Dad gets his butt kicked.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, when we are on the Providence, let's go over to its Dreadnought.
The Dreadnought configuration. The most familiar version that we see there is Trench's Dreadnought.
Yeah, you used that in the blockade of Gustavus.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just the same as a Providence and a Resocan and Resocan Dreadnought. It's just an enlarged version.
Yeah, with more weapons. Everything is bigger.
Yeah. Even the compartment for fighters and bombers, the hangar, is even bigger.
Yeah.
Of course, they could also be modified differently. Trenches had missiles on it, which is not that standard.
And it's thermal shields.
Thermal shield also, yeah, also a different modification. So yeah, on like all ships you could name ever, they are modified, some of them. Different changes, that depend on the commander, I think. While on normal Providence Dreadnought, the thermal shield was not normal, and also the missiles were not, well, it has missiles, but concussion normally.
Yeah.
Those were tracking missiles, they were different.
Yeah, they were, which made them so much more dangerous.
Yeah, because they could go after the magnetic signature.
Yeah.
Which a normal missile wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, normal missile just fires straight, and if it runs out of power, it just continues in space at least.
Yeah, except maybe concussion missiles, are they tracking or? Some of them are at least.
Depends.
Yeah, so depends very much because, well, it's just an enlarged Providence actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say maybe they should make more of them during the Clone Wars. Because, well, you see, Trenches is actually the only one I think we have seen on screen.
Yeah.
There are named a few others, at least in materials. But I think that maybe also the one protecting, what is it called, Dooku's home planet? Sereno, yeah, there you also see a big ship.
That's true. But I think one of the main reasons why is because these dreadnoughts, both for the Resicant and the Providence class, I think they were not standard ships made in the same made in the same space dock. And I have a theory that they were simply too difficult to build.
Probably, or would just take too long.
Yeah,
compared to a normal Providence.
Yeah, and frankly, I would rather have 3 normal Providences than 1 Dreadnought.
Yeah, probably. It's not always quality, but quantity also wins.
Well, I mean, quantity won World War II.
Yeah, indeed.
So,
but yeah, also one ship I think we have forgotten is the CIS supply ship.
Oh yeah.
That small round ball. I would say it's actually more like a core ship, the core from a Lucrehulk that has just been split into 4 parts.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best supply ships, even because it's armed.
Yeah, but also just because of its carrying capacity in total. I think I read something that it could carry over 1 million tons of cargo.
Probably, yes.
That is insane.
And you can just see, like, in the Umbara campaign in Clone Wars, it's just sit there and supply the capital with weapons. It's insane that one ship can keep up that much.
Their biggest weakness, though, is the fact that they're not super maneuverable and they are incredibly fragile.
Yeah, just they have the same weakness as the Lucrehulk. If one of the cores blow up, generators, boom, says the whole ship.
Oh, but not just that. I mean, the Lucrehulk that we haven't touched on yet is fairly well armored, especially the battleship version. But even the carrier version is very well armored. The core ship, though, is a very soft-skinned ship.
It is, because it's just a core.
Yeah, but even the core on the Lucrehulk is also pretty decently armored.
But the core ship is the core of a Lucrehulk.
Yeah, but the supply ship too?
No, the supply ship is not part of that. It just looked like a Lucrehulk core ship split into 4.
That's true. Yeah, but the supply ship is very vulnerable, very soft-skinned, whereas the core ship for Lucrehulk and the Lucrehulk itself is decently heavily armored.
Decently. The supply ship, used for supplies, transporting of goods.
Yeah, but basically like so many other transports that are capable of carrying a lot of stuff, but they're not very well armed or armored.
No, they're used for resupplying fleets, armies, like they did in on Barrow campaign, where
Mhm.
then they just had the problem that they got infiltrated,
Yeah.
and well, power core exploded.
Yeah.
Just almost like when Anakin destroyed Lucahawk in Episode 1.
Same principle. These were just clones who did it, but you know.
Yeah. And they had to make a workaround because the CIS had learned. They had built a shield in front of the reactor.
Oh yeah,
So they had to go around and blow it up.
that's true. But
So
they managed.
They managed, still, yeah. But at least the CIS had learned something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even the biggest idiot has to learn something eventually.
Can be discussed. But yeah, let's make our journey over to the really big one.
Yeah, the Lucrehawk.
Yeah, comes in what, 3-4 different variants?
The carrier version, the transport, heavy cargo hauling version, and the battleship version, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so about 4 versions, but we'll just condense it into one.
Well, the Lucrehawk itself, the battleship version was only 3,130 meters in diameter. The carrier and cargo version was 3,300 meters. So it's 170 meters of difference. Wow.
Maybe it's the armor that made it so much bigger than
No,
it
but
got wider.
the battleship's smaller.
Oh, then I don't know. maybe they reduced the cargo capacity.
Yeah, I think so too. Increased the armor, but reduced the size of the hangars by quite a margin.
Yeah.
Well,
Armed to the teeth.
armed to the teeth all around, couldn't outflank it, couldn't do anything about it. But very, very slow.
Very slow, even though it had big engines.
Yep. But maximum acceleration 300 G. That is 10% of that of the Venator.
Yeah, so they are pretty slow.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they were armed.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Quad turbo lasers almost all the way around. At least in the rings, on the top of the ring. I'm not sure about the bottom actually.
No, but also on the outside of the wing structure.
Yeah, all the way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole edge, or whatever called it. Is it a trench? No, not really.
Not really, but just in every way possible,
Armed.
the Lucrehawk was armed and armored.
Yeah, and had a good shield.
Very good shield. It took 3 Venators or 4 Venators to bring the shields down.
Yeah, and then they had to punch through the rest.
Yeah, which also in itself was no easy task. And the Venators had 7 different power modes behind their weapons. They could really tear some ships to shreds if they wanted to, or they could even use their big heavy cannons for anti-fighter duty, which is something that many people are aware of. And they could spin about They could spin a full 360-degree view
In 3 seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds. Yeah. So, I mean, the Venators really did have a lot going for them, but this is just a testament to how strong a Lucrehawk really was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it takes 3 Venators. Of course, they are not completely battleships, but still. That it takes so much to go through.
Yeah. That is one of the reasons why the Victory class destroyer was such a welcome addition, and later the Imperator, which became the
Imperial class.
yeah.
Imperator class, yeah. Yeah, but still, also its capacity to hold that many fighters and bombers.
Yeah, it's insane. And 1.5 million B1 battle droid units.
Yeah. Well, one ship could take over a planet.
It could, but that's what it was made for. But imagine this. I mean, 1.5 million, that is more than the active military personnel of the US Army.
Yeah, true. Well, let's hope they don't come and invade us.
They're droids.
True, but still.
Yeah, that would be sad. Oh, but I have a lightsaber.
That's true.
So
Then you have to cut a lot down.
don't tempt me.
I know.
No, but well, the Lucrehawk, incredibly expensive. But once you had that, you basically had an entire planetary invasion fleet right on your hands.
Yeah, well, if you have to pay for the ship, pay for the droids.
Everything inside of it, yes. Very, very expensive. But hey, at least you'd have a lot of living space if you didn't have the hangars full.
True. Tennis ball, or what is it? Football, or whatever you want to convert it to.
Well, for me, it would probably be a VR playing arena.
They wouldn't be worried about running into a wall
For example.
for a long time.
For example, but eventually it would happen.
Probably, if you keep going, then yeah, one time you will.
Oh, that was a little detour, but there is probably one more ship that we should touch on. The Subjugator.
Yeah, the Subjugator, yep.
Class heavy cruiser, apparently, even though that thing was 3,700 meters long, and it would actually go into the Dreadnought class.
Yeah.
What can we say about
maybe
it?
because of its armament.
Yeah.
It wasn't heavy turbo lasers, it was just normal laser cannons.
Yeah, twin mounts, 500 of them.
Yeah, mostly known as the Malevolence class as well.
Yeah, but it also did have an unknown sister, which looked nothing like the Malevolence and was one huge turbo laser.
Yeah, powered by Kyber crystal.
Yeah.
Or multiple. I can't remember if it was one or more.
But it was something like that. But the Subjugator, the Malevolence more specifically. One big ion pulse cannon.
Yeah, one on each side. Yeah, and not armed that well, I would say. Even though it had a lot of cannons, it was not that well armed because it was normal laser cannons and not turbo lasers.
Twins.
Yeah, twins, yeah.
So, double the armament.
yeah, still.
But yeah, I know what you mean. And then it of course had some few concussion missiles here and there, and a big hangar, but...
Quite a bit. Actually more than one, but yeah, all the fighters were stored in one.
Yeah. So, it was actually... It was a fast ship, it was very powerful, and it could tear anything apart that it met, if, that is, it managed to hit with its ion cannons, and they weren't disabled.
Yeah, and the funny thing about the Malevolence, ion pulse, is actually that it expanded.
Yep.
The further away it traveled from the ship, the more it expanded.
Yeah.
So if the Malevolence discovered a fleet of ships, it could just turn the side to it and fire, and then hopefully the ring would expand enough to reach all ships in the fleet.
But even without its ion pulse cannon, I am very strongly of the opinion that it could take down a Imperial 1.
Probably still, but I would still think that it had a better chance if it was turbo lasers instead of normal.
Definitely.
But yeah, as its purpose was to disable ships and then fire upon them, that didn't really matter.
Oh, that's true. I mean, once it had disabled the ship, it just tore through them.
Yeah, without a problem, really. You can see it in the Clone Wars.
Even Venators were no match.
Yeah, because the ion pulse disabled everything. Shields, completely all electronic is just fried.
Yeah, everything was just put out of its misery. One could argue, though, that that it could also disable a executor completely. I'm a little on the fence of that, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say because ion weapons are generally said to disable all electronics, depending on how big it is, because maybe it couldn't hit everything.
Exactly. But I'm thinking even if the ring had expanded enough, I don't think it could take an executor's power completely. One of my reasons for that is because of how much power the Venator, the executor, actually generates and how much it uses. And I have a feeling that there also is a kind of a limit to that ion pulse cannon.
Yeah, I think so as well. Also, just so the executor is a few years newer, maybe they have made something different.
Not only that, but also how many reactors do the executor have? We don't exactly have a number, but it has to be a lot, and they have to be very big, because the Venator, last time I checked, was 19 kilometers long. That is a pretty decent size. So
I think it has, as the Mandator, one big one, though I can't remember if it protrudes.
No, it doesn't. Not on the
executor.
No.
And then probably at least 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, scattered in several places around the ship.
Yeah.
So
hard to say, but also we are a bit in different eras again.
I would, if the executor was struck maybe 4 times with the ion pulse, I would say it would be disabled.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times, but a single blast, I have my doubts.
And maybe it could fry a bit.
Yeah,
but
it
not
would
everything.
definitely fry a bit of the circuits and everything, and definitely lower the capabilities of the executor. But I don't think it would completely. I don't think it would stop it completely in one
No.
go.
No, probably not.
It's incredible how many references to versus videos.
You can make. But yeah, overall, Malevolence or the whole class in itself, pretty decent ships, especially because they are designed the way they are.
If they're used right for the way they're designed, then they're amazing ships. Otherwise, they're just very, very big,
expensive,
lightly armed ships.
Yeah, because, well, not that many cannons. Well, okay, it has a lot of them, but they are not that heavy. And they all in the front. They're all in the nose of the ship. Or most of them, at least.
Majority. And what makes it all worse is that they're all fire linked in groups of 8. So 8, if you can target many different targets, but once you do, there will be a group of 8 linked dual cannons that is going to fire at that specific target.
Yeah.
Which has both its uses and disadvantages, but you know.
Against fighters, disadvantage very much. Depends the bigger ship, maybe.
So, but that was basically what we had to say about the CIS and their war machine, so to speak. Do you have anything you would like to?
No, I think we have touched about everything, except if anyone want to know any more other ships that we might not have mentioned, because if you look at the Legends tab in Star Wars Wookiee, they had a lot of other ships and tanks and that we didn't mention because, well, pictures, information, it's very scarce.
Yeah, that's what makes versus videos so damn difficult too, because I have to have some specifics to really go through to be able to actually make a solid conclusion. So, but well, I think that was pretty much it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And then you people will just have to hit us up if you want to come with ideas for other talks.
Yeah.
That we could pick up and maybe make another video about it.
Yeah.
At some point, it might take a while. Depends on what you suggest.
Indeed. We can get a half an hour to go just by talking about one ship alone.
Yeah, depends on the ship, of course.
Depending on the ship, yeah. So, but well, if we don't really have any more, then I would like to wish you all a very nice day, evening, night, morning, wherever you are in this galaxy. And you want to say it this time?
May the force be with you.
Always.